Hey guys, this is Matthew again, and this time I'm going to be explaining the motion to something called, I think, the fried liver attack. That's the fried liver attack. That's just what people call it, because it's so weird. I don't know why they do this, but that's what it's called. So first it starts off with e4, like we've seen in the other openings, e5, bishop c4, bishop c5, then you can have bishop f3, then your opponent might play bishop c6, but now you play g5, knight to g5, and this attacks this vulnerable f-pawn. You want to take down that f-pawn. This f-pawn is another great weakness in the whole game. But if your opponent doesn't see this and just thinks, "Oh, I'll just move out the knight I want to develop," that's nice and all, but you never want to ignore a threat. Never, ever, ever. Tethering your opponent's weaknesses is a big mistake. Not attacking your opponent's weaknesses is a major mistake, because now you can simply take. But now, if your opponent decides to castle, that's a really big mistake, because now you just take the queen. But if they don't, and they save the queen, you just take the knight. But let's say they do. Then they take, and since they're in check, they have to block it. Then they take with the bishop. Then they move back, take the knight, take back, and then they move the bishop away. And they're up 15 points of material. But now, what if they decide to save the queen? Now you take the rook and they try to block the attack, and then they'll put you in check. That's fine. Which, by the way, you do not want to do. That's a mistake. What you instead want to do is move out the knight. But if your opponent sacrifices the queen, take it. Because the second that they do that, you can simply put them in check, and even decide to steal a couple pawns while you're at it, but do not steal any of these pawns because they're all really well defended. So now, what if they do not sacrifice the queen? Then they will go here. And instead of doing anything else, you'll move out the knight, and that will be very, very useful for you in the future. Because in a couple moves, you can think of some pretty good attacks, but do not take this pawn because you know it's guarded by the knight. So that would be the fried liver opening. But now, what if your opponent decides to instead of going there, he just goes here? Well, that's a mistake. Because because right now you do not want your opponent to be sacrificing. Your opponent does not want to sacrifice stuff. It's a mistake. And it might seem like a good thing for you, but you'll lose more. Their opponent will lose more material, and you will win. Well, hopefully. And now you might think, "Oh, okay. What if they instead move up the queen, and then the rook, but then you do this?" Well, you can't. Your opponent cannot take here, but instead your opponent will do this. Then your opponent will take like this. It's self-explanatory. You might think, "Oh, you might not see that coming," and you'll try to get the knight out of there. No. Because now what your opponent does is they take. You try to do this, and oh boy, you are so utterly screwed. Check is not a smart move. Do not do this, because your opponent decides to. That's also not a smart decision. Because now, literally and figuratively, you'll be murdered. Your opponent can simply, and I do not think the thing agrees with me, but I say that this is a smart move, and this is just my personal opinion. You sacrifice the knight, just move them away. You put them in check, and though the game may end there, and they may not end there, all you have to do now is simply move the queen. You do not want to move it there. I'm sorry, that was a misclick. You definitely do not want to move it there. Now you can instead decide to do this. Your opponent will decide to do this, because that tries to deflect the bishop. That's a different thing. And if they take that, then your opponent takes the knight. But you do not want to do that. No, 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 no. Instead, you take the knight. They take the bishop. You take the pawn. They decide instead now. They now instead decide to move up this pawn. Fine. But now you need to get rid of this bishop. You want to get rid of this bishop. But how? First you want to do is instead try to do this. Because now if your opponent captures, and they defend and attack, but your opponent will go back, they'll anchor it, and that's fine. Because now, but if they try to do this, just be careful. Right now, this is what the average game is, and I'm playing well into the mid-game. Because your opponent will try to trick and trap you the whole time. It's always going to happen. You go here, and now your opponent decides it'd be a very strategic move now to play this. This is a strategic attack. Now, if you block it, though, it seems like it's no longer strategic, but they continue because they just managed to develop something. But now, once they move their bishop back, you can move the bishop here, attacks the queen. Their queen has to go here. Now you can move up the knight, and your opponent, and then if your opponent decides, oh, here's an idea. Let's try to get that bishop out of there. This pesky bishop. Fine, because now this is fine. You check them. They block. And now you check them again. They have to go here. They block. Take. And now after that you can move up the pawn. They'll trade off pawns. Once they go here, you instead put them in check, and then they go here. If they go there, then you're in check. They have to go there. Okay. Then they're in check again. They have to move here, and you'll steal their rook, and you'll be ahead, and you'll win the whole game. Now this will likely not happen, but it's likely something along those lines is very likely to happen. Now, anyway, thank you guys so much for supporting this channel, and if you like this, please be sure to like and subscribe, and help out the channel. Have a nice day.